Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. A bipartisan show of support protects the gavel for House Speaker Mike Johnson. An overwhelming majority voted to set aside Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's motion to vacate the chair.
President Biden warns Israel the U.S. will stop shipping weapons if a major offensive in Rafah takes place. This after the Pentagon confirms a shipment of munitions is paused over concerns for civilians in southern Gaza.
President Biden is coming after swing states hear about his visits, ad blitz, and new hires. Will it be effective? Can it overcome some resistance to his policies? And what's the next step? A Democratic strategist tells us.
Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis is on notice. A Georgia Court of Appeals says it'll review a lower court's decision against her disqualification in former President Trump's RICO case. That means the trial could be delayed for months.
The U.S. could introduce a ban that would restrict the import of Chinese-made vehicles, adding to the growing list of Chinese products under scrutiny due to national security concerns.
The FAA delays new rules that require more rest for air traffic controllers due to fatigue issues. And the House votes on an extension for FAA programs set to expire.
Divorce, an ugly topic for all parties, especially if children are involved. How to navigate the rough waters in your marriage with advice from a psychologist.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Today is Thursday, May 9th.
Yeah, and President Biden says the Iron Dome missiles are in, but those heavy bombs are out for Israel.
Yeah. Could it be, that the pressure from the protests are working, or he definitely has a lot to consider with the elections?
A lot of questions here, and we have not heard a response yet from Prime Minister Netanyahu on this, but he says the invasion will go through.
That's right. So President Biden says the U.S. will stop some shipments of weapons to Israel if it goes ahead with a major offensive in Rafah.
Biden says he's not walking away from Israel's security, but is walking away from Israel's war in population centers. Here's the president yesterday on the paused shipments.
We're going to continue to make sure Israel is secure in terms of Iron Dome and their ability to respond to attacks like came out of the Middle East recently. But it's just wrong. We're not going to supply the weapons and the artillery shells used. That
the Pentagon confirmed the U.S. has already paused one shipment of what Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin called high payload munitions. The U.S. was sending Israel 2,000-pound bombs to defend itself after October 7th.
Austin says the U.S. has been clear to Israel that a major attack into Rafah should not take place without a plan for civilians there.
The Pentagon said a final decision on the shipment hadn't been made. The administration says it's reviewing the potential sale or transfer of other munitions. Secretary
Austin told a Senate panel yesterday that smaller, more precise weapons are needed for a densely populated area like Rafah.
House Speaker Mike Johnson still holding the gavel today after a bipartisan show of support.
An overwhelming majority vote last night denied Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's sudden effort to oust Johnson.
Johnson afterwards said he intends to do his job and what he believes to be the right thing.
Greene says Johnson's leadership has been unacceptable and did not rule out forcing another vote in the future. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the vote to keep Johnson as Speaker.
Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
A 359 to 43 vote Wednesday kept House Speaker Mike Johnson in his job after Congresswoman Greene forced a vote on her motion to vacate the chair. Republican Majority Leader Steve Scalise countered, calling for a vote to set it aside. 11 Republicans voted against. Speaker Johnson called Greene's effort misguided and said he hoped it would be the end of frivolous character assassination and personality politics.
We're better than this. We need to get beyond it. The Speaker of the House serves the whole House. That's the job.
Johnson thanked colleagues for showing confidence in his leadership.
In this moment, the country desperately needs a functioning Congress, and that's what the overwhelming majority of the members in this body demonstrated today.
Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says Democrats want the House to keep working in a bipartisan manner.
We need more common sense and less chaos in Washington, D.C.
Jeffries asked traditional Republicans to isolate performance artists and what he called an extreme wing of the GOP to make that happen.
We will continue to govern in a reasonable, responsible, and results-oriented fashion.
Former President Trump on Truth Social had urged Republicans to dispose of Greene's motion. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Biden's campaign is stepping up ad spending.
The campaign says it will spend $14 million on advertising this month. It plans to open its 200th office and hire more staff. And Biden's campaign spent almost 8 times more than the Trump campaign in April. Trump spent roughly the same on legal bills last month as he did on his campaign.
Meanwhile, President Biden, campaigning in a key battleground state, criticized former President Trump over what he called a fizzled economic promise. This comes as new polling shows Americans trust Trump over Biden on the economy. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more on Biden's speech in Wisconsin yesterday.
President Biden is in Wisconsin on Wednesday touting an about $3 billion investment by Microsoft to build a new AI center in Racine. But here's the twist. Biden chose the exact same site where former President Trump, as president years ago, and touted a massive project by Taiwanese manufacturer Foxconn that ultimately failed to generate the thousands of jobs that had promised. President Biden today using that to attack Trump, accusing him of failing to deliver on his economic promises. Watch.
Foxconn turned out to be just that, a con. They dug a hole with those golden shovels, and then they fell into it. We make promises and we keep promises.
The White House says Microsoft AI project touted by Biden will create thousands of jobs in the battleground state, and it's all part of Biden's so-called Investing in America agenda, which he says is to boost domestic manufacturing and to grow the economy.
We're seeing a great American comeback story all across Wisconsin, and quite frankly, the entire country. The bottom line is we're doing what's always worked in this country, giving people a fair shot.
A new Quinnipiac University poll released on Wednesday shows Biden leading Trump by 6 percentage points in Wisconsin. But another poll released by ABC this week shows that more Americans trust former President Trump than they do President Biden on the economy. And as Biden's campaigning in these battleground states, Trump has been decrying election interference as he's mostly stuck at a New York courthouse for most of these days. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had a brain parasite over a decade ago, but his campaign says he's now fully recovered. Kennedy traveled extensively in South Africa, South America, and Asia in his work as an environmental advocate. A Kennedy spokeswoman said he contracted the parasite in one of those locations. She told Reuters the issue was resolved more than 10 years ago, and Kennedy is now in robust physical and mental health. Kennedy has portrayed himself as vibrant and youthful on the campaign trail compared to President Biden and former President Trump. His spokeswoman commented, saying, questioning Mr. Kennedy's health is a hilarious suggestion given his competition. Kennedy is pushing for ballot access as an independent in all 50 states and challenging Trump and Biden to debate. A Georgia state appeals court will hear former President Trump's appeal of the Fani Willis disqualification ruling.
The court yesterday said Trump can file an appeal within the next 10 days. And today's legal correspondent, Arlene Richards, has more.
I'm here with the prosecutors and investigators.
Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis is on notice that her victory in a Georgia Superior Court is not final. The Georgia Court of Appeals on Wednesday granted the Trump team's request for an appeal. The request stems from the lower court's decision to not disqualify Willis. Judge Scott McAfee said there was an appearance of impropriety, but that defense attorneys had not proven there was a conflict. The embattled district attorney was accused of creating a conflict of interest over her personal relationship with former special prosecutor Nathan Wade. Wade resigned as a result of the judge's order, but Willis was permitted to stay on the case. Trump's attorney, Stephen Sadow, applauded the appeals court decision, saying the former president looks forward to arguing before the appeals court. Sadow said the case should ultimately be dismissed. A decision by the appeals court could take months. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Over to New York, let's examine the prosecution strategy in former President Trump's so-called hush money trial. Have they established a motive? What's the purpose of building up Cohen's credibility? And what is the significance of Trump rejecting checks within the $10,000 limit? Here to explain this is Jeremy Rosenthal, a trial attorney and the founder of TexasDefenseFirm.com.
The first 98% of this trial has been focused on the crime. That's the one question, the 2%, that's the closing of the loop where they haven't gotten to yet, and that's going to have to come through Michael Cohen. He is the only one that I've heard or seen from so far that can put Donald Trump's thumbprint on this crime.
Has the prosecution established a motive in this case?
They've certainly done their best. They spent the greater part of the first week and a half basically talking about the panic that was surrounding the current affair tape, that they're trying to recreate and show the jury, look, in 2016 in October, this was a campaign in crisis. And then they ultimately talked about some of the panic, and then they had Hope Hicks on last Friday. She got on the witness stand and said, I think that Mr. Trump would rather have dealt with this issue after the election and not before. So they have certainly set the stage, and they have certainly given as much as they can do to motive for this money transaction and for the falsification, if you will.
What is left for the prosecution to do in order to prove their case?
What they're doing here is they're very slowly but surely and steadily, I mean, they've been very meticulous here. And what they're doing is they know it's a case about Michael Cohen's testimony and his credibility. And what their goal here is to do is to make that as anticlimactic as possible. They are pennying and pennying and pennying in the Trump team. And they're making it to where when Michael Cohen takes a stand, that the jury's going to have to believe him, because all the other witnesses so far are basically there corroborating it. And on top of that, what they're doing with Trump's accounting team is they're slowly but surely walling off all these escape routes that they think Trump might take. Well, the Trump organization is a big organization, and I can't be responsible for everything. Well, they've had testimony that no, every check over $10,000, either Donald Trump or his kids, one of his two sons, had to approve. And in fact, Trump actually rejected some checks that were in that amount. They also had more testimony that no, the Trump organization is more like a family. It's very tight. So they're taking off some of those escape routes.
Other crimes are what prosecutors say that President Trump is concealing here. And keep in mind that they don't need to prove that those crimes actually took place. They just need to show that there was the intent to commit or conceal those crimes. Have they done that?
They've shown, yes, that's kind of where they are in the trial right now, right? So they started off with, here's the motive, here's the panic, here's all these things, and now they're sort of slowly migrating into that money trail. So Monday, they had testimony from a lot of Trump's accounting team and his financial team, one person who had been with them for 40 years, and they broke down dollar for dollar why it was $420,000 that was reimbursed to Cohen, although the original outlay to Stormy Daniels was only $130,000. The checks were actually FedExed to the White House, where Donald Trump signed off on them personally. Now, again, that doesn't close that loop that we're talking about, because he still has that deniability of, well, I sign a lot of checks, but they're getting closer and closer to the center of this.
Well, thank you so much for your analysis. Jeremy Rosenthal, trial attorney and founder of TexasDefenseFirm.com.
Thank you.
Coming up, President Biden issues a warning to Israel if they carry out a major operation in Rafah. We have analysis on America's stance on the war after a shipment of weapons to Israel was paused.
Dozens arrested as the police move on the George Washington University protest encampment. We have reactions from lawmakers and students coming up.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is gonna be Addie's room.
I am blind,
You're really gonna like it.
I hope so, yeah. I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
Waist down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know this road is there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
I'm Richard Karn, and I love my hose. It ain't those old hoses. This is my hose. The new Pocket Hose Copper Bullet, now infused with real copper, so your water is always clean and lead-free. Just turn on the water and watch your hose grow and grow. And when you turn off the water, away it goes. Our new inner tube uses 3 layers of high-strength latex on the inside. Then it's wrapped in a new polymer filament jacket, 3 times stronger than the other hoses. But my favorite part of our new hose build, the oversized, easy-to-grip fittings. Get the super light 25-foot Pocket Hose Copper Bullet today for only $29.99. But wait, call now and get our copper spray nozzle with our exclusive thumb drive free. This is an exclusive release of our newest Pocket Hose. Order now.
Call 1-800-960-8919. That's 1-800-960-8919 or visit copperbullet.hose.com. Order now.
The glory of piano masterpieces from the Baroque, Classical, and Romantic periods. New Tang Dynasty Television invites you to join the 2024 NTD International Piano Competition. Together, we preserve and revitalize the art of authentic classical piano music. October 14th to the 19th at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Apply now at piano.ntdtv.com.
The 2024 NTD 9th International Chinese Vocal Competition is scheduled to take place at Merkin Hall, Kaufman Music Center in New York from September 18th to 21st. The competition specially invites vocalists from the world-famous Shenyun Performing Arts to serve as judges. The prestigious Gold Award is $10,000. Chinese vocal artists aged 18 to 50 are welcome to register.
Welcome back. Police arrest dozens and use pepper spray to clear an anti-Israel tent encampment at George Washington University.
And today's Daniel Monahan has more on the events which unfolded just as city officials were set to appear before lawmakers to account for their handling of the protests.
You're in violation of D.C. Code 22.
Washington, D.C. police began clearing the protest camp at George Washington University early Wednesday morning. Democrat Mayor Muriel Bowser said she and the police decided to clear the camp because of signs the protest was becoming more volatile and less stable. Police say protesters had reportedly gathered improvised weapons and were casing university buildings with the possible intention of occupying them. House Speaker Mike Johnson said it should not require threatening to haul D.C.'s mayor before Congress to keep Jewish students at George Washington University safe. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and others denounced the police crackdown.
Look,
These students are saying save lives no matter faith or ethnicity. That's right. This is something that I feel like is being completely ignored.
You destroyed a beautiful community space that was all about love.
I've watched my fellow students, my close friends, be maced by police, have their hijabs ripped off.
Students at the university commented on the actions of the police.
I don't think it necessarily should have never happened. I'd say the level of violence definitely wasn't at a point where like arrests were necessary.
I'm for it. Arrest them.
I think prior to this happening, it was very peaceful. It was totally like fine within their First Amendment right. But then if like it escalated, then I agree that there should be some sort of de-escalation going on.
They're vandalizing the property. They're not changing anything, and I think that if they have something to contribute, they should go get a job and then donate the money to their cause that they're fighting for.
George Washington University officials say police officers and security personnel will remain at the encampment site and the surrounding area. The yard where the encampment was will remain closed through the end of commencement on May 19th. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
A hearing on anti-Semitism in America's K-12 public schools. The House Committee on Education and the Workforce yesterday discussed combating hateful speech and actions against Jewish students and faculty.
The hearing included school officials from New York, California, and Maryland, and comes in the wake of anti-Israel protests that swept across American colleges. NTD's Fiona G. has more.
The Holocaust ended in 1945. The hate behind it has not. Some kids as young as second grade are spewing Nazi propaganda, which begs the question, who has positioned these young minds to attack the Jewish people?
House Republicans questioned school administrators' lack of disciplinary action in addressing discriminatory rhetoric. Concerns were also raised about hateful videos that propagated anti-Semitism on popular social media platforms such as TikTok. Discussions revolved around incidents of anti-Semitism in K-12 schools, including a riot against a Jewish high school teacher in Queens, New York.
Is the former principal at Hillcrest still drawing a salary from New York City Public Schools today?
Yes, he is.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I said, yes, he is.
You are still paying.
He is no longer the principal of the school.
How can Jewish students feel safe at New York City Public Schools when you can't even manage to terminate the principal of Open Season on Jews High School?
Proposed strategies at the hearing to combat anti-Semitism include modifying curricula to include a more comprehensive view of Jewish history and increased media literacy training to teach students to think critically about the content they consume on social media. Fiona G., NTD News.
President Biden has a warning for Israel. He said for the first time yesterday that the U.S. will stop supplying weapons if Israeli forces carry out a major invasion of Rafah in the Gaza Strip.
This while the United States paused a shipment of weapons to Israel due to these operations. Despite international criticism, Israel Defense Forces are continuing their ground operations in eastern Rafah. NTD's Jason Perry has the latest on the war.
The IDF on Wednesday released video showing troops operating in eastern Rafah, marking day 2 of the Israeli ground offensive into the southern Gaza City. After taking control of the Gaza side of the Rafah border crossing, the IDF reportedly conducted raids on suspicious buildings from which Hamas terrorists fired at Israeli troops. The IDF reported killing 30 terrorists during the operation and destroyed large amounts of terrorist infrastructure in the region. And Israeli fighter aircraft struck about 100 targets from the air. And on the Israeli side of the border, tanks were seen firing towards Rafah. Meanwhile, in the United States on Wednesday, in a congressional hearing, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin was asked about Israel's operation in Rafah, and he was interrupted by protesters yelling, "Free Palestine!" Free Palestine!
Israel shouldn't launch a major attack in Rafah without accounting for and protecting the civilians that are in that battle space. And again, as we have assessed the situation, we paused one shipment of high payload munitions.
Austin confirmed that the U.S. had paused the shipment of weapons to Israel due to the Rafah operation. Senator Lindsey Graham shared his concerns about the decision.
And you're telling me you're going to tell them how to fight the war and what they can and can't use when everybody around them wants to kill all the Jews? And you're telling me that if we withhold weapons in this fight, the existential fight for the life of the Jewish state, it won't send the wrong signal?
Israel's military spokesperson also appeared to respond to the move.
The aid is unprecedented. The operational partnership is significant. When there are disputes, and there are, they are being resolved behind closed doors in a matter-of-fact way. We are responsible for the security interests of the State of Israel, and we are attentive to the interest of the United States in the region.
Jason Perry, NTD News.
Coming up, the FAA delays new rules requiring more rest for air traffic controllers, and the House votes on an extension for FAA programs set to expire.
More than just beautiful dance. It's a touch of the divine. More than just legends. It's the beautiful culture and wisdom of China before communism. More than just a performance. It's an experience that awakens the soul.
Lincoln Center, NJ-PAC, State Theater, Purchase, and Stamford. Starting March 28th. Tickets at genuine.com.
Do you believe in Jesus?
The one-time drug dealer turned pastor, along with two others, will be executed at 12 midnight local time.
I thought this would be our final run ever. We had made millions and millions of dollars, but God had other plans.
We'll walk straight out of here, pretend to be the media.
This pathetic maggot got caught trying to escape my prison.
He's a changed person. He's a new man.
I found Christ in here.
I found Christ too.
My name is Peter Lowe, and I will be executed in 2 hours. Why am I being executed, you ask?
Salvation is a gift.
Hi, I'm Tim Che, the director and writer of The Firing Squad. You can participate in our Million Souls campaign, inviting everyone you know to Jesus. Listen, we all face some kind of firing squad in our lives, and yet faith in the Lord, that challenge can lead us to true peace in this insane world. We can't do it without you. We're competing with big Hollywood movies, so we're relying on your voice to spread the word. Thank you again for supporting this important movie.
Are you ready to help your family get prepared for the unexpected?
Everyone in? Here we go!
Ladybug and Cat Noir know how important it is to be ready. Because you never know when Hawkmoth is going to strike, or a disaster will hit. And you don't need miraculous powers. Just put those planning skills you already have to good use. Know who to call, decide on a safe meeting location, and create an emergency preparedness kit. Make a plan that will help you and your family be ready when emergencies happen. Ready Kids can help.
I'm coming to save you!
Get started at ready.gov/kids.
Welcome back. In Washington, D.C., the House yesterday voted to pass a one-week extension for federal aviation programs.
Congress currently has a May 10th deadline to reauthorize Federal Aviation Administration authorities.
The move would give lawmakers until May 17th to make a decision. The bill seeks to bolster aviation safety standards and consumer protections. The Senate will need to okay this extension now that it's passed the House.
In related news, the FAA said Wednesday it was delaying requirements for air traffic controllers to get at least 10 hours off between shifts and 12 hours off before a midnight shift. The new rules came after an independent review of fatigue issues called for new minimum rest periods.
The FAA is struggling to address a persistent shortage of air traffic controllers and a series of near-miss incidents, including some attributed to controller error.
Under current rules, controllers handling active airplanes must get an 8 or 9 hour break between shifts in most instances.
After a bill was passed last month forcing TikTok to divest or be banned, the social media company responded with a lawsuit, arguing the law violates the First Amendment. I spoke to Andrew Selepak. He's a social media professor at the University of Florida, and I asked him for his thoughts on social media's role in free speech.
When we talk about First Amendment rights, I think a lot of people need to understand that their First Amendment rights are limited on these platforms as opposed to what is legal for them to say or do. So from that perspective, we already know that there's some limitations. With TikTok, we're not exactly sure what other limitations might be because of the algorithm, because of the owners, because of the ownership and its connection to the CCP. So we're fairly certain there's other content that is also not being allowed on the platforms. But because we don't know what the algorithm is doing, what the algorithm is limiting, we're not exactly sure what that content could be that the platform is not allowing users to see, or what content the algorithm is pushing onto users either.
But if divestment of TikTok would happen, what does that mean? Because TikTok has already mentioned that it would not sell its algorithm with that.
And from what I can understand and what it looks like is if I was to be ByteDance, I wouldn't sell the algorithm either. I mean, that's essentially the thing that's made it so popular with so many young people as opposed to other platforms. At the same time, if they did sell the algorithm, part of that would be they'd have to admit the ways that they are sort of pushing certain content or hiding other content, or before it was sold, they'd have to change their algorithm so the buyers wouldn't actually be getting the platform that they are purchasing. So I think one of the big things for ByteDance, and from that perspective, the CCP, is they do not want to sell the platform with the algorithm, because then it would come with the information of this is how certain content was being pushed. And any person, any group, any tech company that was to buy it would then be able to find out exactly what was going on there. And I think they'd actually really like to protect that, probably more than a lot of other things, because of what it would reveal.
Right. So let's talk about the other scenario then. Let's say ByteDance won't divest. What then? Let's treat maybe India and, as you said, Pakistan as a case study. How could that play out?
Well, if they don't want to sell, basically the law that's passed says that, hey, this is a national security concern, and the app could just be banned here in the United States altogether. At the same time, there's over 100 million users here in the United States that use a VPN, so they could still potentially access this particular app. We can look at examples from across the world of where this has happened, but because of our own laws, our own restrictions here in the US, how this could play out, we're not exactly sure. The closest example we've possibly seen was Parler from a couple of years ago, where it was banned by Google, was banned by Apple, and was basically removed from Amazon's AWS for a while, and the app completely died. That would be potentially a way for that to happen, but then you'd have to force multiple US companies to sort of act in accordance with this law.
Right, which adds another layer of complications. So a lot of questions that still need to be answered is what I'm hearing from this. Thank you so much for some incredibly interesting insights, Andrew Selepak. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Investigating the costs of the border crisis, the House Budget Committee yesterday examined the financial burden on the U.S. caused by illegal immigration. NTD's Virginia Gibson has that story and how China might be involved.
House Budget Committee Chairman Jody Arrington on Wednesday said reports show that the border crisis costs the U.S. anywhere between $150 and $400 billion annually.
The lion's share of that cost is borne by state and local governments. And friends, State and local governments can't borrow or print money like the federal government. And so they're having to balance their budgets by either absorbing this cost through raising taxes, or they're having to cut services to their citizens.
He added that costs come to about $9,000 per illegal immigrant. Arrington says that's more than the U.S. spends on Medicaid beneficiaries. It's also more than veterans receive in way of retirement benefits. Democrats, meanwhile, criticized the fact that Republicans were holding Wednesday's hearing, saying they should pass a border bill instead, which came out of the Senate.
Step one, Republicans demanded a border deal. Step two, they negotiated a border deal. Step three, when Trump ordered them to, they killed that border deal. And finally, step four, here we are holding a hearing about how bad the border is.
The House isn't picking the Senate bill up because Republicans say it would only allocate money to the border without fixing underlying issues. Before that Senate bill came to be, the House had already passed a border bill titled H.R. 2, but the Senate is not picking that one up. Virginia Gibson, NTD News.
What's more patriotic than an American flag? Makers of handcrafted wooden flags started their business with not much more than a 6-year-old's idea and a $50 Home Depot gift card.
But then their business was threatened after they were demonetized by Facebook and had over $110,000 of theirs withheld by PayPal. But there's a good ending to the story. Here's James Stockey, the founder of Your American Flag Store.
So that became, actually, we grew the business during COVID, and during that time, things were going great. Like I said, we moved across country. We were living the American dream, bought our first home, and then out of the blue, all the sales just stopped. Out of nowhere, we could not figure out what the heck is going on. No sales. So I started looking into it, got onto the Meta platform, the business platform, found out that they had suspended our ad privileges, stating that our products went against their community standards. So in addition to that, we found out that Shopify, who was hosting our website, had pulled down some of our best selling products. Both of those companies pulled down all the same products. They pulled down our Christian Cross flag. They pulled down our first responders flags, which are flags that have firemen and police officers badges and department logos and that kind of thing hand painted on the flag.
Tell us about this deadly tag, the so-called deadly tag, where someone posted a picture of an American flag that you sent them that had Trump's image on it.
Okay, so we had a customer call us. At this point, we did not have any flags with presidents on them. But one of the biggest services that we offer is a custom flag. So a customer called us, asked if we would put the face of President Trump on a flag. We said, okay. We made the flag for him. We sent him the flag. He loved it. So he took a picture of it, posted on his social media, and tagged us in it. And when he tagged us in it, that's when Meta actually canceled us over that flag. But then they looked on all the flags and they canceled not just the President Trump flag, which we called the 45 flag. They canceled the Christian Cross flag, the military flags, and the first responder flags as well.
And James, it was nearly a year-long legal battle, but you eventually got PayPal to give your money back. How did that happen?
Well, I wish PayPal would have dealt with just us, but unfortunately they wouldn't. They would not deal with us at all. We were lucky enough to have Harmeet Dillon from the Center for American Liberty see our story. And she called us and appointed one of her attorneys, Mark Moiser, to our case to start negotiating with PayPal to get our money. And over 10.5 months, actually 10 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days, it took them to slowly give us, $5,000, $10,000. And at the very end of the day, when they had about $11,000 left of our money, they actually said that they would only give us back that last $11,000 if we signed a non-disclosure agreement with them. So we wouldn't be allowed to tell this story today if we would have signed it. We obviously didn't sign it.
So you are back in business now. What do you want Americans to know about this phenomenon that is called cancel culture, and how big corporations determine who and who cannot be in business?
Well, I'd like to first remind people that cancel culture is a real thing. A lot of people, like myself, didn't really believe that it happened until it happened to me. But when it does happen to you, it absolutely crushes a business. When they take away your means of advertising, when they take away your means of displaying your products on a website, about 70% of businesses go out of business within 7 years. What most people don't know is that of that 70% of those family-owned businesses that go out of business, 60% roughly end up in divorce. So cancel culture is not just a war on the American entrepreneur and the American spirit, but it is actually a war on the American people.
James Stockey, founder of Your American Flag Store, thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Neither Facebook nor PayPal immediately responded to NTD's request for comment.
Yeah, it just shows how small businesses can be very reliable on social media like that, and how a move like this could just make such a big difference in their business and their livelihood.
Yeah, they really depend on getting their name out there and setting up their brand on these social media platforms.
Yeah, exactly. We're heading to break now. Just ahead of wildfire season in California, major insurance carriers are pulling out of the California market. It's leaving hundreds of thousands of homes uninsured. How state lawmakers are trying to solve the problem.
The U.S. could introduce a ban that would restrict the import of Chinese-made vehicles, adding to the growing list of Chinese products under scrutiny due to national security. Stay tuned for that.
There's cultures that have been lost, but this culture hasn't been. The artist is showing us our sense of who we are, where we came from. You look at his hat. His hat is knitted probably by a man, because a man traditionally knitted the hats. That hat tells you the story of who this person is, what his place in the culture is, the animals around him. Everything's all contained in the messages in the hat. And the tool that he's carrying over his shoulder. This is a centuries-old tool that has been able to rework the mountains. Those traditions are invaluable, and if we don't honor those traditions, then we're rootless. The artist is showing us the value of maintaining our culture and respecting our culture. Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
I'm in the bedroom.
Okay.
Oh, shit. It's not here.
What?
The gun's not here.
What do you mean? Where is it?
Cameron, are you in there? Open the door. Cam, come on.
Welcome back, everyone. We have NTD's Business Matters host Don Ma with us now to give us the latest updates from the business world.
Don, China, cars, Americans' data, what's going on here?
Right, so the U.S. could potentially ban China-made connected vehicles here or impose restrictions on them. So that's what's happening. And this is according to Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. Yesterday's comments were the first indication that a ban could be on the table here. So that's significant. The Commerce Department is reviewing public comments on a probe that the Biden administration launched in February into whether Chinese vehicle imports pose national security risks. So Raimondo is saying that the agency needs to digest all the data and figure out what action is needed to be taken. She said the department could take extreme measures, extreme action here. For example, saying no Chinese connected vehicles in the United States, or considering other responses, including safeguards and guardrails. So Raimondo is saying that she was concerned about the fact that potentially Chinese connected vehicles, which could collect massive amounts of data on Americans, and that's including patterns of driving, who they are, what they say in their car, and where they go. She's also pointing out the fact that the U.S. needs to take the threat much more seriously.
Right, a huge amount of data for sure, and that includes, when you say that's fingerprints as well, and obviously the voice recordings that you just mentioned, and just all this biometric data that is a lot of just very risky for them to have. So let's stay on the cyber security realm here. There was another cyber attack that happened yesterday. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so unfortunately, another cyber attack apparently happened here. So the cyber attack disrupted clinical operations at Ascension, which is a major healthcare nonprofit. So in a statement, Ascension said that it detected unusual activity on some of its computer systems yesterday. And the network includes 140 hospitals and dozens of senior living facilities in 19 states. Ascension says that it notified authorities and initiated procedures to ensure patient care will be minimally impacted here. The company also says it's going to notify patients if any sensitive data was compromised in the hack. And healthcare providers across the U.S. have suffered ransomware attacks as well in recent years. The CEO of United Health says a third of Americans could have had their data stolen when a subsidiary suffered a ransomware attack in February as well.
Very serious stuff here, considering that Ascension has 140 hospitals in 19 states, and at least in Florida, those patients were being diverted to nearby hospitals. Let's move on to the entertainment realm. Disney and Warner Brothers, they're teaming up to offer this new streaming bundle. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so some maybe good news after all that. So starting this summer, Walt Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery will offer a bundle of the Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max streaming services in the United States, and the companies announced the plan yesterday. And customers will be able to sign up on any of the 3 websites and choose from an ad-free or ad-supported plan. No prices were disclosed. So both Disney and Warner Brothers are trying to build their streaming businesses as customers ditch traditional cable packages. But as the number of streaming apps increased, an explosion, some would say, or some would argue, consumers complained about having to sign up for multiple subscriptions. So this could be potentially an effort to address just that.
Right, and you know what that means? I think it means that perhaps Marvel and DC will be brought onto the same subscription plan, which is great. And I guess for them, it might lower chances of, cancellation.
That is a very good point. I would love to see Captain America fighting Batman or Superman.
There we go. Who would win? Who knows? All right, another discussion for another day. Yeah. All right, thank you so much, Don Ma, host of NTD's Business Matters.
Thank you.
Thanks. And several major insurers have pulled out of California's homeowners insurance market. They cite increased costs related to the state's growing wildfire risk. Carriers have either stopped issuing new policies or announced they won't renew existing ones. Here's more.
Landing in front of them.
In recent years, thousands of California homes have been destroyed by wildfires. Just ahead of this year's wildfire season, carriers like Allstate, Farmers, and State Farm are pulling out of the California market. An insurance services spokesman says the problem has been building for years.
Well, the insurance market right now is in chaos, and part of it is in chaos is that for years insurers have not had adequate rates. In the last 10 years, they lost an average of paid $1.13 for every dollar they took in. So insurers need to get adequate rates. Then they can start reviewing the policies and the mitigation efforts that people take and price them appropriately.
Ed Bratt lives in an area of Oakland Hills which hasn't been affected by recent wildfires. He was recently notified that his insurance company isn't renewing the policy he's had for 25 years.
So I received a letter from my insurer, the same insurer that we've had since I bought this house in 1999, saying they were not going to renew our policy. They said we lived in a high fire area and they were not renewing it.
Bratt is a retiree and worries he'll be unable to sell his home if it can no longer be insured.
If I can't sell it, apparently now you can't sell houses because they can't get insurance. I mean, it's just a disaster that's unfolding here.
The state legislature is trying to fix the problem through reforms, but it has put the insurance industry and consumer advocates at odds. California's insurance commissioner is trying to overhaul home insurance regulations by giving insurers freedom to raise premiums. Consumer advocates worry the method for estimating the cost of future fires will not be transparent, leaving homeowners with excessive premiums.
I wish the insurance commissioner and the insurance companies could work out what's wrong here, why this has suddenly come to a head.
One study says the cost of wildfires in California between 2017 to 2021 was over $117 billion.
And all that comes as California is adding thousands of members of their CAL FIRE, and they're trying to get rid of that fuel and manage the vegetation and all this.
Yeah, good point. All right, we're heading to break. Coming up, is there an easier way to go through a divorce? We speak to a psychologist to get his advice on relationships and what could possibly save them.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
All right, I'm at the house, and I'm gonna head inside. Okay, come on, this door. I'm in the house.
What do you see?
Let me check the den. There's nothing in the den. Let me check the kitchen. There's no one downstairs, it looks like.
Wait, what was that?
I don't know. Let me head upstairs.
What do you see?
What the? Did you shut this bathroom door?
No.
Oh,
What?
It's not here.
What do you mean?
The gun's not here.
What? Where is it?
Oh my God.
What's going on?
Cam.
Oh my God, what's going
Cameron, are you in there? Open the door. Cam, please, please, open the door, Cameron. Come on, Cam.
It's good to have you back with us. Divorce, an ugly topic for all parties, especially if children are involved. But is there an easier way to navigate through the tough times?
For some relationship and post-relationship advice, I spoke to Dr. Ron Raymond. He's a psychologist and the co-author of The Road to Splitsville. I asked him about some of the biggest issues that could affect a marriage.
A lot of people go through this, only if I had done this or if I had done that, and they don't really look at the fact that they probably put everything they could into the marriage, but that something occurred with the trust dimension. I think that's the most dimension in a marriage, is trusting each other. And something happened there, and they don't look at why it happened.
Can you talk to me more about, maybe is there something couples could do can do different to just, in general, lower the chances of divorce in the first place?
Well, I think in the hundreds of couples that I've seen over the years, one of the main things is they don't talk to each other. And there's a lot of blame going on. Unfortunately, some of it is self-blame. As I said, if only I had lost 10 pounds, whatever it was, this wouldn't have happened, that kind of thing. But I think that very often people are not looking at what happened to the marriage, and that people do fall out of love. We have to realize that. We can be in love, but then fall out of love.
That's right. So let's say a couple does decide to get a divorce. Any tips on how they can make it an amicable one?
How they can make the divorce amicable? Yeah, I think by talking to each other and really evaluating what happened to this marriage. So often in the couples I've seen, they stop talking to each other once the divorce decision has been made, and there's only anger expressed. And anger doesn't get you any place in this, although it's a natural part of the divorce experience, I think. But expression of anger toward the now-to-be ex-spouse is not a good way of communicating.
Of course, many have children when they get divorced. So is there anything specifically that parents should then pay attention to if there is children involved, maybe minimize the emotional toll it will take on them?
Yes. I think what I saw in so many couples that I evaluated and interviewed in this process is that they continue to put on the child or the children their anger toward the ex-spouse. And so they talk poorly about the ex-spouse. And that should be a no-no. There should never be any investment in the child or the children about the ex-spouse. It should just be, that's dad or mom. And people have to realize that children can have a good relationship with both parents, even when they're divorced.
Some very valuable advice this morning. Thank you so much, Dr. Ron Raymond. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Very insightful.
Yeah, well, marriage can be a lot of work, right? So, learning how to communicate and how to communicate it while also taking into account the other person's feelings. It can be really hard.
Yeah, and echoing some of the things that he said is just that very well mind says you got to forgive quickly, respect your partner, and of course good communication is always important.
Right. All right, we're heading to a quick break. We'll be right back though with more, so stay with us.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
Yeah, so there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. President Biden warns Israel the U.S. will stop shipping weapons if a major offensive in Rafah takes place. This after the Pentagon confirms a shipment of munitions is paused over concerns for civilians in southern Gaza.
A bipartisan show of support protects the gavel for House Speaker Mike Johnson. An overwhelming majority voted to set aside Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's motion to vacate the chair.
Fulton County DA Fani Willis in the spotlight. An appeals court is reviewing a judge's decision not to disqualify her from the case.
The fallout from the 2020 presidential election continues. 2 women in Michigan are charged in a voter data breach.
A 6th tornado emergency was issued in the U.S. this week. What exactly is a tornado emergency? We tell you what you need to know if you hear one.
And Mother's Day is just around the corner, and time is ticking to get her that special gift. We have some creative ideas that could help you lower costs without losing out on the sentimentality.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD.
Today is Thursday, May 9th. Today's top news. President Biden says the U.S. will stop some shipments of weapons to Israel if it goes ahead with a major offensive in Rafah.
Biden says he's not walking away from Israel's security, but is walking away from Israel's war in population centers. Here's the president yesterday on paused shipments.
We're going to continue to make sure Israel is secure in terms of Iron Dome and their ability to respond to attacks like came out of in the Middle East recently, but it's just wrong. We're not going to supply the weapons and the artillery shells used. That
the Pentagon confirmed the U.S. has already paused one shipment of what Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin called high payload munitions. The U.S. was sending Israel 2,000-pound bombs to defend itself after October 7th.
Austin says the U.S. has been cleared to Israel that a major attack into Rafah should not take place without a plan for civilians there.
The Pentagon said a final decision on the shipment hadn't been made. The administration says it's reviewing the potential sale or transfer of other munitions.
Secretary Austin told a Senate panel yesterday that smaller, more precise weapons are needed for a densely populated area like Rafah. Biden's campaign is stepping up ad spending.
The campaign says it will spend $14 million on advertising this month. It plans to open its 200th office and hire more staff. And Biden's campaign spent almost 8 times more than the Trump campaign in April. Trump spent roughly the same on legal bills last month as he did on his campaign.
Meanwhile, President Biden, campaigning in a key battleground state, criticized former President Trump over what he called a fizzled economic promise.
And here for a quick comment on President Biden's decision not to supply certain weapons to Israel if it invades Rafah, and an update on Biden's campaign, which is seeking to bolster its presence in battleground states, is David Carlucci. He's a Democratic strategist and former state senator in New York. Hi, David. Let's get right into it. What does Biden's threat to withhold those 2,000-pound bombs from Israel signal? That is, does it mark a departure of Biden's support for Israel's goal of taking out Hamas, or is it just that he doesn't want these non-precise weapons being used in that city?
Yeah, it's definitely the latter. President Biden has been steadfast in his support for Israel, the security of Israel, and to bring peace to the region. And not just peace for a day or for a week, but long-lasting peace. And I think this is the due diligence that we want in a leader, to make sure that if we're supplying even our greatest ally, Israel, with lethal weapons, we need to make sure that we do our due diligence and that it's going to be used in the most appropriate way. Of course, this is a war, and it's very difficult to make any decision. But I think we want to make sure that the United States is doing the right thing, and that's to support Israel, to make sure that their security is protected. But at the same time, make sure that any weapons that we're delivering are how they're going to be used are done appropriately.
Okay, David, let's move on to President Biden's lock on battleground states here. How effective will Biden's $14 million ad blitz be, the one that's showing support for Obamacare and Medicare that Trump and Republicans have sought to either repeal or reform?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very important to be very specific. These campaigns on the Trump side, on the Biden side, they have to move in like a surgeon, right, and use a scalpel. To just blitz the airways, to have mail. You never know what's going to put you over the top in a campaign. You try to do everything. But President Biden has the resources. Like you said, he's been spending way more than former President Trump. He's got that $14 million ad buy. He's got TV. Trump hasn't done any TV. But in this day and age, you've got to focus to those key constituents. I think most people, they have their mind made up already, but there is that group in the middle that doesn't. And what are the issues that are going to speak to them? It's important to get those messages in front of the right people. So President Biden is targeting specific demographics, and I think he's going to be able to do that effectively. There was a Quinnipiac poll that just came out that showed that Biden has taken the lead in Wisconsin. Yes, it's a slim margin, just 1%. So these polls are showing it's a neck and neck race. So everything is going to be important, but I think they've got to be strategic in how they use those resources on both campaigns.
And Biden's really zeroing in on Georgia and Michigan here. He's set to visit Atlanta to give the commencement speech at the Morehouse College. Afterwards, go to Detroit to speak at the NAACP's annual Freedom Fund dinner there. So we'll see what happens. Biden's campaign announced they're opening 200 new offices and hiring 500 more people. Can that offset concerns over inflation and pushback over Biden's sometimes unpopular policies on the electric vehicles here, especially considering that it did alienate some of those strong allies in the unions?
Well, I think that President Biden having those offices is key, right? To be able to be really on the ground. And that's where they're not taking anything for chance. You juxtapose that to the RNC, and they've really gutted many of their operations, particularly their outreach to minority voters. The RNC has really scaled back on that, where you see the DNC doubling down, opening these community offices, which are key. But the devil's in the details, and particularly in the policy. And I think when you can get that policy across to people in these battleground states, one thing to understand, the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, what Donald Trump has tried to do and what Joe Biden has actually done is very different. And if we can get that message in front of voters, they're going to make that decision to go with President Biden. I mean, just in Wisconsin, Joe Biden was pointing out how Trump had promised all these jobs with Foxconn, $10 billion investment. It never happened. So Joe Biden is there. He was able to bring the deal to get Microsoft to invest over $3 billion in Racine, Wisconsin. That's going to be a big boom to manufacturing jobs in that state. So it's about focusing on the real issues in terms of what they've actually done, moving away from all the rhetoric. And I think there's a clear distinction between the Democrats and the Republicans. The Republicans are pointing out problems. They're blaming everyone, but not taking responsibility and not actually talking about what they're going to do differently to move these issues forward, whether it's the economy, the environment, women's rights, you name it. There's a whole bunch of issues. The Democrats are very clear, and the Republicans are just blaming. So
Okay,
that difference is going to have to be really pushed forward.
Yeah, on the other side, some are saying that Trump doesn't need all these offices. He just needs to go in, do a rally once in a while, and then he has what he needs there. Just briefly here, what's next for Biden as he seeks to round up these swing states?
Yeah, I think you'll see him really pressing the flesh, getting out there as much as possible, doing these rallies, talking about specific policies and what he's actually done. I think you could expect to see a lot of that, rolling out the examples, whether it's the bipartisan infrastructure bill or the Inflation Reduction Act or the CHIPS Act or the PACT Act. Giving examples of how Biden's actually rolled up his sleeves and delivered to the American people, whether that's manufacturing jobs, whether it's union labor, veterans, women in terms of protecting their reproductive freedom and their rights. You're going to see these specific issues laid out and pointed to over the next few months.
David Carlucci, thanks for coming on.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
House Speaker Mike Johnson still holding the gavel today after a bipartisan show of support. An overwhelming majority vote last night denied Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's sudden effort to oust Johnson. Johnson afterwards said he intends to do his job and what he believes to be the right thing. Greene says that Johnson's leadership has been unacceptable and did not rule out forcing another vote in the future. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the vote to keep Johnson as a speaker.
Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
A 359 to 43 vote Wednesday kept House Speaker Mike Johnson in his job after Congresswoman Greene forced the vote on her motion to vacate the chair. Republican Majority Leader Steve Scalise countered, calling for a vote to set it aside. 11 Republicans voted against. Speaker Johnson called Greene's effort misguided and said he hoped it would be the end of frivolous character assassination and personality politics.
We're better than this. We need to get beyond it. The Speaker of the House serves the whole House. That's the job.
Johnson thanked colleagues for showing confidence in his leadership.
In this moment, the country desperately needs a functioning Congress, and that's what the overwhelming majority of the members in this body demonstrated today.
Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says Democrats want the House to keep working in a bipartisan manner.
We need more common sense and less chaos in Washington, D.C.
Jeffries asked traditional Republicans to isolate performance artists and what he called an extreme wing of the GOP to make that happen.
We will continue to govern in a reasonable, responsible, and results-oriented fashion.
Former President Trump on Truth Social had urged Republicans to dispose of Greene's motion. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
An appeals court will consider Trump's bid to disqualify District Attorney Fani Willis in the Georgia election case.
The Georgia Court of Appeals will review a previous ruling that allowed Willis to keep prosecuting the case.
Lawyers for Trump and his co-defendants tried to disqualify the Fulton County DA and her special prosecutor in March.
Judge Scott McAfee said there wasn't enough evidence to prove Willis financially benefited from a romantic relationship the two said they had.
The judge decided Willis could stay on the case if Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade stepped down.
A state board would need to appoint a new prosecutor if Willis and her office are taken off the case. Judge McAfee has not set a trial date yet.
In Michigan, 2 people who challenged the results of the 2020 election have been charged over a voter data breach that year.
The state's attorney general announced the defendants yesterday as Stephanie Scott and Stephanie Lambert.
Scott is a former Adams Township clerk, and Lambert is an attorney who is already facing charges in a separate election tampering case in Michigan.
Both women are accused of felonies, including conspiracy and sharing voter data with an unauthorized third party.
Scott was charged with 6 crimes and Lambert was charged with 3. Scott has previously denied wrongdoing.
Meanwhile, Lambert has pleaded not guilty in her separate election case, where she's accused of leaking emails from Dominion voting systems. Stay with us. Another tornado emergency warning was issued in the U.S. this week. What exactly is a tornado emergency? We'll tell you what you need to know if you go through one.
Mother's Day is just around the corner and time is ticking to get her that special gift. We have some creative ideas that could help lower costs for you without losing out on sentimentality.
Performance that truly matters. For each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. Coming to Lincoln Center, NJ Pack, State Theater, Purchase, and Stamford. Starting March 28th. Tickets at genuine.com.
Meet the Scan, a simple procedure whose mission is to detect lung cancer early.
I feel fine.
That's great, but you may still be at high risk for lung cancer.
Oh man, that's a new fence.
If you smoke, early detection could save your life. Learn more at savedbythescan.org.
If you love them enough to drive an hour to cheer them on as they get beat 11-0 in the rain, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the-right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Throw that ball, Diane! Woo! You got this!
What do you do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-984-7221. That's 1-800-984-7221, or go to getbullseyepro.com.
The tempting online world is encroaching on our campus. Is unplugging cables and confiscating phones the solution to protect our children? No, we just need a clean multimedia platform. Join Ganjing Campus to leverage premium channel features, professional development courses, and kindness event toolkits tailored for teachers. Build a truly positive and interactive classroom community. Foster a pure and delightful learning environment for children.
Welcome back. More severe weather across parts of the U.S. Major storms yesterday spawned destructive tornadoes, produced massive hail and dangerous flooding.
The storms killed 2 people in Tennessee and 1 in North Carolina. The National Weather Service said water rescues were ongoing in flooded parts of Tennessee. It described the flooding as life-threatening.
And in New Hope, North Carolina, the fire department responded to a tree that fell on a car. Officials said 1 person was killed and another taken to a hospital. Here's more.
The National Weather Service continued issuing tornado warnings into the night, mainly in Tennessee, but also in Missouri, Alabama, Georgia, and Texas. Tornadoes were confirmed in Pennsylvania just outside Pittsburgh, also in central Arkansas and in northern West Virginia. In Missouri, baseball-sized hail was reported just southwest of St. Louis. A tornado near Nashville caused local authorities to shut down part of Interstate 65 because of damaged road signs, trees, and an overturned car. In Michigan, 3 tornadoes touched down in the state's southwest. The Kalamazoo area was hard hit, more than a dozen mobile homes destroyed.
Right now, we believe we're confirming a 16 number of people that were injured and taken to the hospital. Their injuries were all minor enough that it looks like everyone's going to be out of the hospital today.
Aerial shots show the devastation, ranging from partial to total destruction.
A tornado went through, and then about 45 minutes later, another tornado, almost on the direct same path, was coming through. So as emergency responders and citizens were standing in these streets trying to help one another, we were alerted a second tornado was coming in.
Local residents quickly came together after the tornadoes to help each other begin the long cleanup process.
People just started showing up. As soon as the tornado was gone, people whose homes were intact came out to help those whose weren't, and have started within minutes.
In Portage, Michigan, storefronts without walls or roofs were all that remained of a little shopping center. A restaurant manager said his staff took shelter in a walk-in cooler as the storm came in, saving their lives.
They said it just happened so quickly. Wind blew through, he got everybody into the walk-in cooler. He saved their lives yesterday.
The severe weather is forecasted to shift into the southeast and mid-Atlantic on Thursday, bringing with it more hail, damaging winds, and the possibility of a few tornadoes.
Please stay safe, everyone. April to June is the peak tornado season in the U.S., with May being the busiest month. This year follows the pattern, with a reported tornado every day since April 25th, totaling 14 days so far.
Yeah, the first ever tornado emergency in Michigan was also issued this week. It was one of many called across the country recently as severe weather tears through plains and the Midwest.
Last year, there were 15 tornado emergencies across the U.S. But what is a tornado emergency, and what should you do if one is issued? Here's what you need to know.
Tornadoes are some of the most devastating weather events in the U.S. The National Weather Service issues different levels of warnings to tell people tornadoes are coming or could come. The lowest level is called a tornado watch. It's a heads up, roughly up to 10 hours in advance of a storm. The watch area typically covers a lot of ground, such as several counties or multiple states.
A way to think about tornado watches is the conditions are ripe, but that doesn't mean there's a tornado. Think of it like building a taco and you have the ingredients for a taco, but you don't have the taco. That's tornado watch.
When a tornado warning is issued by local forecast offices, weather radar indicates a tornado is coming or it's been seen already. People in the area need to act because there is imminent danger to life and property. This could mean moving to a substantial shelter on the lowest floor possible and quickly avoiding windows. Warnings typically cover a much smaller area, such as the size of a city or a small county.
A tornado warning is you have a taco. It may not be in your room, but you have a taco somewhere.
A tornado emergency is the Weather Service's highest tornado alert level. One is issued when a few criteria are met during a rare weather situation. There has to be an imminent or ongoing severe threat to human life and catastrophic damage. A damaging tornado has to be confirmed visually or with radar imagery.
Now, a tornado emergency is when it's a really nasty tornado and it's going to a place where there are people, and this is when the Weather Service has said, hey, pay attention. This is a nasty tornado. It's really dangerous. Pay attention.
If a tornado emergency is issued in your area, you should call friends and family to ensure they are keeping watch on the weather. Shelter in place and don't try to outrun a tornado in your car. Get to your shelter in place area immediately. It's smart to have a plan ahead of possible tornado events. The National Weather Service began issuing tornado emergencies back in 1999. There have been almost 300 since then, averaging about 15 per year nationwide.
Yeah, the Midwest definitely gets a lot of tornadoes. Texas actually gets the most, about 150 every year. So really got to be careful.
Yeah,
gotta
they
be prepared.
definitely look very intense. And it's a good way to think of it. Think of it as a taco. I guess that's a good bridge to build and to remember, what that means. And the U.S. Army says, to always stay tuned to local radio, TV stations, and also to try set up a room at the lowest floor in a sturdy building, of course, and without windows is best.
All right.
So, yeah.
Good point. Yeah, this time of year, you got to be really vigilant.
For sure. And also, Mother's Day is just around the corner. And if you haven't bought a gift or started planning yet, time is running out.
We take a look at some of the spending trends as well as some creative ideas to help lower costs without losing sentimentality.
Sunday is Mother's Day, a day devoted to making the moms in our lives feel appreciated. And that might mean buying her something special. People plan to spend an average of $254 per person this holiday. That's a total spending of $33.5 billion, according to the National Retail Federation.
Consumers know that the real way to mom's heart is by making her feel extra special on this day.
Catherine Cullen with the National Retail Federation says topping the list of gifts this year are flowers and greeting cards, followed by spending on a special outing like dinner or brunch. Other ideas include jewelry or electronics, such as a new phone, or perhaps some noise-canceling headphones. Another creative idea is splurging on an experience.
Some of the experiences we see consumers gravitating towards are a spa experience, maybe a cooking class.
Happy Mother's Day!
But you don't have to empty your wallet to make the day memorable for mom. One way to keep the cost down is to do a fun activity with the family, like hike or plan a picnic. Cullen also recommends looking for deals and discounts to help keep costs down.
We are starting to see retailers advertise Mother's Day deals and promotions, and we know that even more will be out there as the day gets closer.
But remember, no matter what you do, quality time is what matters most, and that's priceless.
And you can always send your mom on a trip to the French Riviera, too.
Yeah.
Don't rule that
Why
out.
not? Why not?
Yeah.
I'm sure the mom will appreciate it.
But for under $20 on Laja Corner, you can get a fruit and veggie hammock if your mom's into that.
Oh, interesting. All right. Okay, why not?
Something for the kitchen.
Something definitely she probably has not seen before, so that's a surprise, I guess, which is good. But for sure, I would agree with, quality time. I love giving, experiences, and it's just a good chance to show your appreciation, and even if it's just cooking something for her, if you don't have the means to take her to the French Riviera, for example.
Yeah, and flowers can last a little while, but those memories are going to last a lot longer.
All right, there we go. All right, on that note, we're wrapping up our show right here, but be sure to stay tuned for NTD's News Today broadcast at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. That's still coming up.
And for round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app.
That's right. Thanks for watching. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.
American Medicine Today, featuring cutting-edge medical and science innovators and a medical professional's insight on political and social issues plaguing our nation and healthcare. American Medicine Today, Saturdays 6 and Sundays at 9 on NTD Television and other streaming platforms.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from both